The first time my daughter mentioned the man in the hallway, I barely looked up from my laptop. She was sitting on the living room rug with her crayons, drawing the same kind of picture she always drew: our house, the sun in the corner, herself with stick figure arms too long for her body, me with square shoulders because that was apparently how fathers look to 5-year-olds. My wife, Nora, was in the kitchen making pasta, and I was half listening while answering work emails I should have finished an hour earlier. "Daddy," Emma said, very casually, "the hallway man doesn't like when you work at night." I remember smiling without thinking. Kids say strange things all the time. Especially at 5. They absorb scraps of language, build private mythologies, and deliver them in a tone so matter-of-fact it makes nonsense sound briefly important. I assumed this was one of those moments. "The hallway man?" I asked. She nodded, still coloring. "The one by the bathroom." Nora looked over from the stove. "What hallway man?" Emma shrugged like we were the ones being slow. "The man who watches." Nora and I exchanged the kind of quick parental glance that says do not overreact in front of the child. Then Nora did what any sensible mother would do. She asked gently, "Sweetheart, is this pretend?" Emma looked up, annoyed. "No. He's tall." That was the end of the conversation, at least outwardly. Later that night, when Emma was asleep, Nora laughed it off. We had both grown up with siblings, cousins, enough kids around us to know that imagination could take weird forms. Invisible tea party guests. Monsters who only hated carrots. Entire arguments with people who did not exist. Emma had never had an imaginary friend before, but there was a first time for everything. Still, I noticed something I didn't mention right away. She said the hallway man, not a hallway man. As if she were referring to someone already known. Over the next week, he came up 3 more times. Once when Nora asked Emma why she wouldn't go brush her teeth alone. "Because he's there." Once when I tucked her into bed and she asked me to shut her door all the way because he walks slower when the door is shut. And once, the one that actually stayed with me, when she looked past me toward the hall and said quietly, "He doesn't like you either." That last one landed differently. Not because I believed her. Because children are very good at finding the exact combination of words that bypasses adult logic and goes straight to the nervous system. We checked the usual things. No scary YouTube videos. No older cousins telling ghost stories. No teacher mentioning weird behavior. No sign Emma was distressed in any broader way. She was eating fine, sleeping mostly fine, playing normally. If anything, the strange part was how unafraid she seemed when describing him. Not panicked. Not hysterical. Just inconvenienced. As if there happened to be a man in our hallway, and adults were being weirdly unhelpful about it. Then she drew him. I came home early on a Thursday and found a sheet of printer paper on the dining table. Emma had drawn our living room in her usual lopsided style: blue couch, yellow lamp, television much larger than in reality. On the far right side, near the hallway entrance, she had drawn a tall figure in all black. Longer arms than everyone else. No mouth. Empty circles for eyes. Above him, in careful crooked letters, she had written, "He stays here." That was the first moment I felt something close to fear. Not fear of a ghost. Fear that something was wrong in a way I didn't understand. Nora felt it too. I could tell by how quickly she folded the paper and set it aside, as if removing the image might remove the feeling. That night she asked Emma more directly, "Can you tell Mommy about the man?" Emma nodded. "He comes when it's dark." "Does he talk to you?" "No." "What does he do?" "He stands there." "Does he ever come in your room?" "No." "Just yours?" Nora froze at that. "Our room?" Emma nodded again. "Sometimes." I laughed then, but it sounded forced even to me. Okay, absolutely not. Not because I was brave. Because I suddenly needed the room to feel normal again. I checked the locks that night. Front door, back door, windows, garage. All secure. I even walked the perimeter outside with a flashlight like a suburban klitsch, half hoping to catch myself being ridiculous. Nothing. For 2 days, I almost convinced myself the drawing had gotten into my head. But children's fantasies are contagious that way. They take up space in your adult brain and start turning shadows into possibilities. Then Saturday morning, I found the footprint. It was on the tile just outside the downstairs bathroom. A partial print. Muddy. Big enough to be an adult shoe. Nora said it could have been mine. I said I hadn't been outside. She said maybe it was old. I said we cleaned the floors Thursday. We stood over it too long, both pretending not to measure our breathing. I checked the doors again. Still locked. What made it worse was that nothing else seemed wrong. No missing items. No broken latch. No signs of forced entry. Just one dirty partial print in the exact area our daughter kept pointing to. That night I moved a chair under the front doorknob and slept lightly with my phone in my hand. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up to Emma crying. Not screaming. Crying. That soft, terrified kind that sounds worse because it's already been happening before you hear it. Nora got there before I did. Emma was sitting upright in bed, clutching her blanket so tightly her knuckles looked pale in the hallway light. "He was in your room," she whispered. Nora pulled her close immediately. "No, baby, no." "Yes," Emma said. "He was watching you." I know how this sounds. I knew even then how this sounded. But if you've ever had a child say something impossible at 2 in the morning while shaking in your arms, logic becomes much quieter than people think. I searched the house again. Every room. Closets. Shower curtain. Garage. Backyard. Nothing. The next morning, Nora asked if maybe we should stay at her sister's for a few days. That suggestion annoyed me more than it should have. Because leaving would mean acknowledging there was something to leave from. I told her no. I said Emma was feeding off our reactions. I said if we acted scared, she'd get worse. I said all the responsible, practical things people say right before they find out practical has limits. That same afternoon, I went into the attic. Officially, I was looking for the baby gate we'd stored up there years earlier because Nora wanted to use it for our dog when guests came over. Unofficially, I think I wanted a project. Something ordinary. Something physical. Our attic is unfinished, with boards laid across the beams and insulation packed between them like dirty snow. You have to crouch in most of it. It smells like dust, wood, summer heat, old cardboard. I was halfway to the back wall when I noticed the sleeping bag. It wasn't ours. Dark green. Rolled loosely, shoved behind a stack of plastic storage bins. Next to it was a plastic grocery bag with 2 empty water bottles, a flashlight, and 3 granola bar wrappers. I just stared at it. It's strange what the brain does in moments like that. It doesn't process the obvious first. It stalls. It looks for absurd alternatives. Maybe a contractor left it. Maybe a relative. Maybe somehow this has an explanation that preserves the shape of your life. Then I saw the vent. Someone had moved the insulation around the air duct above our bedroom ceiling. Not randomly. Intentionally. Enough to create a narrow space facing down toward the grill. I backed out of that attic so fast I nearly went through the drywall. I didn't tell Nora immediately because I was afraid Emma would hear. I took her outside, told her we were going to get ice cream, and locked the attic hatch before we left the house. Then I called the police from the parking lot of a gas station 3 miles away because I couldn't stand the idea of saying it while still inside those walls. The officers found more than I had. The man had been living in our attic on and off for at least several weeks, maybe longer. He'd been entering through a side window in the garage that didn't latch correctly unless you forced it. From the attic, he could hear most of the house through the vents. He had taken food in small amounts, mostly things we wouldn't notice right away. Crackers. Fruit pouches. Bottled water. Once, apparently, slices of bread. There was a backpack up there too. Inside was a change of clothes. A cheap prepaid phone. And a spiral notebook. I didn't read the whole notebook. I only saw one open page before the officer turned it away. At the top, written several times in cramped handwriting, was my daughter's name. He wasn't a drifter. He wasn't random. He had been watching us. The police eventually identified him as a man who had done maintenance work in our neighborhood the year before. He'd been inside our house once, maybe twice, for less than an hour total. Long enough to see the layout. Long enough to know we had a child. That was 2 months ago. We moved out within a week. People keep asking the same question when they hear the story. How did your daughter know? I've stopped giving the long answer because the long answer is the worst part. She knew because she heard him. At night, the house made sounds we filtered out as adults: settling wood, duct noise, shifting temperature, pipes. But children live closer to the edge of noticing. They don't have categories for every sound yet. They just know when something feels occupied. Emma told us later that sometimes she heard breathing in the hallway vent. Sometimes soft creaks above our room. Once, she said she saw an eye looking through the crack of our bedroom door, but I still don't know if that part was memory or fear reshaping itself after the fact. What I do know is this. My daughter kept telling us there was a man in our house. And because she was 5, we called him imaginary. I think about that drawing all the time now. He stays here. He did. That's what makes me sick. Not the footprint. Not the sleeping bag. Not even the notebook. It's the fact that a child saw the outline of danger before either of her parents did, and we smiled at her like she was describing a cartoon. We live somewhere else now. Emma sleeps with the hallway light on, and if she says she hears something, I check. Every time. I don't care if it's irrational. I don't care if it means standing in a dark room at 1 a.m. feeling stupid. Because once, the monster in the hallway was real. And my daughter was the only one who knew his name for what it was. A man who watched.